There are places in the world that seem to exist in plain sight, yet feel impossibly distant from public understanding. Places photographed from above, mapped on satellite images, visited by boats and aircraft, and still wrapped in an atmosphere of secrecy. One of those places is a small, sunlit island in the Caribbean, surrounded by clear blue water and swaying palm trees. At first glance, it looks like paradise. But for years, it carried a reputation that was anything but peaceful. Behind its beaches and luxury villas, questions lingered. Questions about power, wealth, silence, and the uncomfortable reality of how long certain truths can remain hidden. Tonight, we are counting down the top 5 facts about Epstein's Island, moving from what is publicly known to what remains deeply unsettling. We're starting with number 5. Little St. James is a private island located in the US Virgin Islands. Roughly 75 acres in size, it was purchased by financier Jeffrey Epstein in 1998 for around $8 million. Later, he also acquired the neighboring Great St. James Island. The location was remote enough to offer privacy, yet close enough to major travel routes to remain accessible by private aircraft and boat. Over time, Epstein developed the island extensively. There were luxury villas, guest houses, staff quarters, and a prominent blue and white striped building perched at a high point overlooking the ocean. From a distance, it resembled an exclusive retreat for the ultra-wealthy. For years, visitors described it as a place for gatherings of powerful individuals, though much of what occurred there was not widely scrutinized until investigations began to intensify. What stands out most about the island is not just its isolation, but how it functioned almost like a self-contained world. Private docks, its own security, limited public access. It was designed to operate outside ordinary visibility. At number 4, the island became central to criminal investigations. Jeffrey Epstein was first charged in Florida in 2006 with sex-related offenses involving minors. He later reached a controversial plea deal in 2008, serving a short sentence in a county jail with work release privileges. That plea deal shielded him from federal prosecution at the time and allowed him to continue many of his activities afterward. However, in 2019, federal prosecutors in New York charged him again, this time with sex trafficking of minors. According to court documents, prosecutors alleged that Epstein operated a network that exploited underage girls over many years, recruiting them under false pretenses and transporting them between properties, including his Manhattan townhouse, his Palm Beach estate, and Little St. James. The island, often referred to in media reports as Epstein's Island, became symbolic of the allegations. While many details were subject to ongoing legal processes, it was clear that the island was not simply a vacation destination. It was a location cited in testimony and investigative reporting as part of a broader pattern of alleged abuse and exploitation. Epstein died in jail in August 2019 while awaiting trial, officially ruled a suicide, though controversy and skepticism followed. At number 3, the architecture of the island raised intense speculation. One of the most photographed structures on Little St. James was the unusual blue domed building located on elevated terrain. Its purpose was never clearly explained in public filings, and its distinctive design led to widespread speculation online. Satellite imagery showed walkways, private paths, and what appeared to be extensive landscaping that suggested careful planning for seclusion. Reports described security measures, including cameras and controlled access points. Staff members were reportedly required to sign strict non-disclosure agreements. The island also had its own private generators and infrastructure, making it largely independent from external systems. While there is no verified evidence supporting many of the extreme claims that circulated online, what is factual is that the layout of the island reinforced privacy. In legal proceedings and investigative journalism, survivors described being transported to the island and isolated from the outside world. The physical environment itself, surrounded by water, limited escape routes, controlled movement, became part of the narrative. Even after federal authorities searched the property in 2019, the mystique surrounding certain areas persisted, fueled by incomplete public access to full investigative records. At number 2, the network of powerful associations connected to the island became one of the most discussed aspects of the case. Epstein was known for cultivating relationships with influential individuals across politics, academia, business, and entertainment. Flight logs from his private jet, often referred to in media as the Lolita Express, were released during legal proceedings and revealed numerous high-profile passengers over the years. It is important to note that being listed on a flight log does not imply criminal wrongdoing. However, the sheer number of prominent names intensified public curiosity and suspicion. The case forced a broader conversation about accountability and whether wealth and status can shield individuals from scrutiny. Ghislaine Maxwell, a longtime associate of Epstein, was arrested in 2020 and later convicted in 2021 on federal sex trafficking charges related to her role in recruiting and grooming underage girls. Her conviction reinforced the reality that the operations surrounding Epstein were not the actions of a single individual acting in isolation. The island became emblematic of a system where power and privilege intersected with alleged abuse. It raised uncomfortable questions about how many people knew, how much was ignored, and why meaningful intervention took so long. Before we move to number 1, pause for a moment. If you've been following this story so far, and you appreciate deep, unsettling storytelling that explores the layers beneath headlines, let us know in the comments. And if you're drawn to stories that examine power, secrecy, and the hidden structures shaping our world, consider liking this video and subscribing to Deeper 5. Now let's continue. At number 1, the most disturbing fact about Epstein's Island is not a single building, flight record, or allegation. It is what the island represents. Little St. James has since been sold, and many of its structures have reportedly been demolished or repurposed. The palm trees still sway. The ocean remains calm. From a distance, it looks unchanged. But the island has become a symbol, a reminder that immense wealth can construct environments of extraordinary isolation. It stands as a physical representation of how long patterns of abuse can remain concealed when surrounded by influence and silence. Survivors who came forward described years of manipulation, coercion, and exploitation. Their testimonies shifted public perception from rumor to documented reality. Yet even now, unanswered questions remain. Questions about who knew what and when. Questions about institutional failures. Questions about how justice functions when intersecting with power. The case surrounding Epstein did not exist solely on that island, but the island crystallized the narrative. It forced society to confront uncomfortable truths about complicity, about systems that prioritize reputation over protection, and about how easily charisma and philanthropy can obscure darker realities. Investigations uncovered financial transactions, recruitment methods, and travel patterns that painted a complex web extending far beyond a single location. Still, the image that lingers most vividly in public consciousness is that secluded Caribbean retreat, sunlit, beautiful, and deeply shadowed. What makes the story of Epstein's Island so unsettling is that it challenges assumptions. We often imagine wrongdoing happening in dark alleyways or hidden corners of cities. Yet here was a place marketed as exclusive luxury. It hosted scientists, financiers, and cultural figures. It was discussed in elite circles. And for years, the allegations tied to it were either minimized or quietly settled. The eventual federal charges and Maxwell's conviction demonstrated that accountability can surface, even after long delays. But they also revealed how fragile that accountability can feel when confronted with systemic complexity. In the end, the island itself is just land, rock and sand surrounded by water. But the events associated with it transformed it into a symbol of imbalance between power and vulnerability. It reminds us that secrecy thrives in isolation. It reminds us that wealth can build walls higher than any physical fence. And it reminds us that truth, though delayed, has a way of resurfacing. As the sun sets over Little St. James, casting long shadows across its shoreline, the story remains a cautionary tale, not just about one man or one place, but about the structures that allow silence to persist. The most unsettling part is not the architecture, not the flight logs, not even the legal proceedings. It is the realization that systems can fail quietly for years before anyone listens closely enough to hear the cracks forming. And perhaps that is the lasting image, an island that once symbolized escape, transformed into a reminder that no amount of distance can permanently shield the truth.